The celebration dinner was in full swing, the air thick with laughter and the clinking of glasses. As Daphne stood, her champagne flute raised, the room fell silent in anticipation of her toast. She had worked tirelessly for this promotion, and her accomplishment was a testament to her unwavering dedication. "To new beginnings and the pursuit of excellence," she declared, her voice carrying a note of pride. "May we always strive to be our best selves, both professionally and personally." As the guests applauded, Daphne caught her brother-in-law Ethan's gaze. A flicker of something unsettling lurked behind his congratulatory smile, a subtle shift that sent a chill down her spine. "And let's not forget the role luck played in this," Ethan added, his tone deceptively light. "After all, success is often a matter of being in the right place at the right time." Daphne's husband Derek shot Ethan a warning look, but the damage was done. The undercurrent of jealousy and resentment hung palpably in the air, casting a shadow over the joyous occasion. As the night wore on, Daphne found herself increasingly unsettled by Ethan's veiled comments and thinly veiled barbs. She had always sensed a certain animosity from him, but tonight it felt more pronounced, more deliberate. In the car ride home, Derek reached across the console, taking Daphne's hand in his. "Don't let him get to you," he said softly. "You've worked harder than anyone I know for this promotion. Ethan's just, well, you know how he can be." Daphne forced a smile, but the nagging feeling persisted. This was more than petty jealousy. It was the harbinger of something far more sinister, a storm brewing on the horizon of their lives. A few weeks after the disastrous celebration dinner, Derek and I were hosting a family gathering at our home. The atmosphere was tense, with the memory of Ethan's snide remarks still fresh in our minds. Little did I know, this gathering would be the catalyst for a series of events that would test the very fabric of our family. As we sat around the living room, Ethan cleared his throat, his expression unusually serious. "I have a proposition for you, Derek," he began, his gaze flickering towards me before settling on my husband. "A business opportunity that could be incredibly lucrative for both of us." Derek leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What kind of opportunity?" Ethan launched into a detailed explanation of a joint venture, his words flowing smoothly as he painted a picture of potential riches. I listened, my skepticism growing with every passing minute. Something about his pitch felt off, a nagging sense of unease that I couldn't quite put my finger on. When he had finished, Derek turned to me, his eyes alight with enthusiasm. "Well, what do you think?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I don't know, Derek. It all sounds a bit too good to be true, and Ethan's track record in business is, well, let's just say it's not exactly stellar." Ethan's expression darkened, and he shot me a look that could have burned a hole through steel. "I appreciate your concern, Daphne," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "but I assure you this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, one that we'd be foolish to pass up." Derek wavered, torn between his loyalty to his brother and his trust in my judgment. "Maybe we should sleep on it," he said finally, his brow furrowed. Ethan nodded, but his eyes held a glint of something sinister, a determination that sent a shiver down my spine. Over the next few days, Derek became increasingly enamored with the idea of the venture, blinded by the promise of wealth and success. No matter how many reservations I voiced, he seemed determined to move forward with Ethan's proposal. Finally, I relented, knowing that my opposition would only drive a wedge between us. But as I agreed to the venture, a sense of foreboding settled deep within me. I couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan was hiding something, that his motives were far from pure. And so with a heavy heart, I found myself embarking on a path that would lead us into a twisted web of deception and betrayal, fueled by Ethan's insatiable greed and my own nagging suspicions. Despite my misgivings, I agreed to Ethan's business venture for Derek's sake. But the nagging doubts refused to subside, and I knew I had to take matters into my own hands. If Ethan was hiding something, I needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. As the initial stages of the business setup unfolded, I began my own covert investigation into Ethan's past dealings. Late at night, when Derek was asleep, I pored over financial records and court documents, piecing together a disturbing picture of Ethan's history. What I uncovered was a trail of questionable practices and shady transactions, stretching back years. Bankruptcies, lawsuits, and allegations of fraud seemed to follow Ethan like a dark cloud, casting a long shadow over his so-called business acumen. I confronted him one afternoon, my evidence laid out before me like a damning indictment. "How could you do this, Ethan?" I demanded, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "How could you lie to Derek like this?" Ethan's expression was a mask of calm, but I could see the fury simmering beneath the surface. "Those were just minor setbacks, Daphne," he said smoothly. "Nothing that should concern you or Derek, but this venture is different. It's a guaranteed success." "You're deluding yourself," I spat, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. "And you're trying to drag Derek down with you. Well, I won't let that happen." Ethan's mask slipped then, and I saw a glimpse of the true darkness that lurked within him. "You think you can stop me?" he hissed, leaning forward menacingly. "You have no idea what I'm capable of, Daphne. This is my chance at redemption, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it happen." I recoiled, suddenly afraid of the man standing before me. This was no longer just about a business venture. It was a twisted game of power and revenge, fueled by Ethan's wounded pride and insatiable greed. In that moment, I knew that I had to tread carefully. Ethan was a dangerous adversary, and I had to protect Derek from his machinations, no matter the cost. As the weeks passed, I kept a watchful eye on Ethan's every move, gathering more evidence of his misdeeds. But I also knew that confronting him directly would only push him further into a corner, making him even more unpredictable and dangerous. So I bided my time, waiting for the perfect opportunity to expose Ethan's true nature to Derek and to the world. Little did I know that the reckoning would come sooner than I expected, and the consequences would shake our family to its very core. It was a typical weeknight when Ethan showed up unannounced at our doorstep. Derek welcomed him in, oblivious to the storm that was brewing. As soon as Ethan entered the living room, his gaze locked onto me, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Daphne," he said, his tone deceptively casual. "I was hoping we could have a little chat." Derek looked between us, sensing the tension in the air. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Before I could respond, Ethan launched into a tirade, his words laced with venom. "Your wife has been conducting her own little investigation behind our backs," he spat, his eyes narrowed accusingly. "She's been digging into my past, trying to sabotage this venture before it even gets off the ground." I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Ethan steamrolled over me. "She's never trusted me, Derek. She's always been jealous of our relationship, of the bond we share." Derek's gaze shifted to me, uncertainty flickering across his features. "Daph? Is this true?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. "Yes, it's true, and I have good reason not to trust him." I turned to Ethan, my anger rising like a tidal wave. "You've been hiding things from Derek, things that could jeopardize everything we've worked for." Ethan scoffed, his lips curling into a sneer. "Like what? My past failures? Everyone hits a few bumps in the road, Daphne, but this time it's different. This venture is going to be a success, and you're just too blind to see it." The words tumbled from my lips in a torrent, laying bare all the evidence I had gathered. The bankruptcies, the lawsuits, the allegations of fraud. With each revelation, Ethan's face grew more twisted, his mask of civility slipping away to reveal the true depths of his depravity. Derek stood there, stunned into silence, his world crumbling around him. I could see the anguish in his eyes as he grappled with the truth about his beloved brother. Ethan seized the opportunity, turning the tables on me with a masterful display of manipulation. "Can't you see what she's doing, Derek?" he implored, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "She's trying to turn us against each other, to undermine our relationship. She's always been jealous of the bond we share." Derek wavered, torn between his loyalty to me and the deep-seated love for his brother. I could see the doubt creeping in, the seeds of mistrust taking root. In that moment, I knew that the battle lines had been drawn. Ethan was a master manipulator, skilled in the art of deception, and he would stop at nothing to achieve his twisted goals, even if it meant destroying the very family he claimed to cherish. As the tension in the room reached a fever pitch, I steeled myself for the long road ahead. This was no longer just about a business venture. It was a war for Derek's soul, a fight to expose the truth and break Ethan's insidious hold over our lives. and I was determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The tension had been building for weeks, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode, and when it finally did, the fallout was catastrophic. It all came to a head during a critical financial meeting at the business premises. Ethan had been acting increasingly erratic, his behavior growing more and more suspicious with each passing day. But I never could have anticipated the revelations that were about to unfold. As we gathered around the conference table, the air thick with anticipation, Ethan launched into a convoluted presentation, his words laced with half-truths and carefully constructed lies. But halfway through, one of our investors interrupted him, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Mr. Fox, these numbers don't seem to add up," he said, leafing through the financial reports. "There are discrepancies here that raise some serious red flags." Ethan faltered, his mask of confidence slipping for the briefest of moments. But before he could respond, another investor chimed in, their voice laced with concern. "Yes, and I've been doing some digging into your past business ventures," she said, her gaze piercing. "It seems there have been numerous allegations of misconduct and financial impropriety." The room erupted into chaos, voices rising in a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. Ethan tried to regain control, but the damage had been done. His web of lies was unraveling before our very eyes. In the midst of the chaos, I caught Derek's eye, and in that moment, I knew that the truth had finally been laid bare. The anguish in his expression was palpable. A man grappling with the realization that the brother he had idolized was nothing more than a fraud. As the investors continued to bombard Ethan with questions, I stepped forward, voice cutting through the din like a razor's edge. "This is what I've been trying to tell you, Derek," I said, my words laced with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "Ethan has been manipulating us from the start, using this venture as a means to further his own selfish ambitions." Ethan whirled on me, his eyes blazing with fury. "You conniving little—" He spat, his composure crumbling like a house of cards, but I didn't flinch, my gaze unwavering. "The evidence speaks for itself, Ethan. Your reign of deception is over." In that moment, something shifted in Derek's demeanor. The scales had fallen from his eyes, and he saw Ethan for who he truly was, a man consumed by greed and jealousy, willing to sacrifice everything and everyone in his pursuit of power. As the meeting descended into chaos, with investors demanding answers and threatening legal action, Ethan turned on his heel and stormed out, his parting words a chilling promise of retribution. But in that moment, I knew that we had won a crucial battle. Ethan's carefully constructed facade had crumbled, exposing the true depths of his depravity. And while the road ahead was sure to be fraught with challenges, I was more determined than ever to protect my family from his toxic influence, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of Ethan's explosive exit, our family was left reeling. The trust that had once bound us together had been shattered, replaced by a palpable sense of betrayal and anguish. It was Eliza who reached out first, attempting to play the role of peacemaker. She arranged a family dinner, ostensibly to clear the air and mend the fractured relationships. As we gathered around the table, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ethan sat at one end, his eyes narrowed and his jaw clenched, while Derek and I occupied the opposite side, a silent show of solidarity. Eliza cleared her throat, her gaze flickering between us like a nervous bird. "I think we all need to have an honest discussion about what happened," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "Ethan, you owe Derek and Daphne an explanation." Ethan scoffed, his lips curling into a sneer. "An explanation? For what? For trying to provide for my family? For seizing an opportunity that would have set us all up for life?" Derek's fists clenched on the table, his knuckles turning white. "Don't give me that crap, Ethan," he growled. "You lied to us. You manipulated us. And for what? Your own selfish gain?" Ethan's eyes blazed with fury, and he turned his wrath on me. "This is all you're doing, isn't it, Daphne? You've been poisoning Derek's mind against me from the start." I met his gaze unflinchingly, my resolve steeled by the truth. "I didn't have to do anything, Ethan. Your actions spoke for themselves. You're the one who chose greed over family." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating us all with their weight. Eliza looked increasingly uncomfortable, her eyes darting between her husband and her sister, torn between the two. Ethan leaned back in his chair, a twisted smile playing on his lips. You know, Derek, I always knew she was trouble. From the moment you brought her into our lives, I could see the way she looked at me, like I was some kind of threat. Derek's brow furrowed and he opened his mouth to respond, but Ethan barreled on, his voice rising in a crescendo of anger and resentment. But you were too blind to see it, too caught up in her little act. Well, guess what, brother? The joke's on you. She's been playing you from the start, trying to turn us against each other. In that moment, something snapped within Derek. He shot to his feet, his chair clattering to the floor behind him. Enough, he roared, his face contorted with rage. I'm sick of your lies, Ethan. Sick of your twisted games. Ethan rose as well, his hands balled into fists at his sides. Oh, so that's how it's going to be? Fine, I'll just take my business elsewhere. And when you come crawling back, begging for my help, don't expect any mercy. With that, he turned on his heel and stormed out, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Eliza burst into tears, her carefully orchestrated dinner now reduced to rubble. As the dust settled, I could see the weight of Ethan's betrayal bearing down on Derek's shoulders. He turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of pain and resolve. I'm sorry, Daff, he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. You were right all along. I should have listened to you. I reached out and took his hand, offering what little comfort I could. It's not your fault, Derek. Ethan is a master manipulator. But we'll get through this together. And as we held each other close, I knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous. But no matter what challenges lay before us, I was determined to protect my family from Ethan's toxic influence, even if it meant cutting him out of our lives for good. In the weeks that followed Ethan's dramatic exit, the legal battle began in earnest. As the evidence of his misdeeds mounted, it became increasingly clear that he was fighting a losing battle. The first blow came in the form of a civil lawsuit, brought forth by the investors he had deceived. As the details of his financial improprieties came to light, the courtroom erupted in a chorus of gasps and whispers. Ethan, for all his bravado, seemed to wither under the weight of the accusations. His usual charm and charisma were nowhere to be found, replaced by a sullen, defeated air. As the proceedings dragged on, more and more skeletons tumbled out of Ethan's closet. Past business associates took the stand, painting a damning portrait of a man driven by greed and a complete disregard for ethics. Through it all, Derek sat stoically in the gallery, his face a mask of grim resolve. I could see the turmoil in his eyes, the struggle to reconcile the brother he had idolized with the monster on display before the court. When the verdict finally came down, it was a resounding victory for justice. Ethan was found guilty on multiple counts of fraud and financial misconduct, facing the prospect of hefty fines and potential jail time. But even as the legal system ground its wheels of justice, Ethan's downfall played out on a much larger stage, the court of public opinion. As the sordid details of his crimes came to light, the media descended like a pack of vultures, gleefully tearing into his once pristine reputation. Headlines screamed of his deceit, his broken promises, and his utter disregard for those he had professed to care about. Ethan, ever the master of manipulation, tried to fight back. He granted interviews, spinning tales of being wronged and persecuted. But his words rang hollow, falling on deaf ears as the world watched his empire crumble around him. Through it all, I remained resolute, determined to see this through to the bitter end. Ethan had tried to destroy my family, to tear us apart from the inside out. And now, he was reaping the rewards of his own treachery. As the weeks wore on, Ethan grew increasingly desperate, lashing out at anyone and everyone within reach. He even went so far as to launch a smear campaign against Derek and me, accusing us of orchestrating his downfall out of jealousy and spite. But his words held no sway, his credibility in tatters. The world had seen his true colors, and there was no going back. In the end, Ethan's downfall was as spectacular as it was inevitable. His once promising career lay in ruins, his fortune squandered, and his legacy forever tarnished by the stain of his own greed and deceit. And as he faced the consequences of his actions, I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. Justice had been served, and my family was finally free from the toxic grip of his manipulation. But even as the dust settled, I knew that the scars of Ethan's betrayal would never fully heal. Trust, once shattered, is a fragile thing, and the road to redemption is paved with hardship and sacrifice. Several months had passed since the legal battle with Ethan had drawn to a close. The dust had settled, and life was slowly returning to a semblance of normalcy, or at least as normal as it could be after such a tumultuous ordeal. As I sat on the porch swing, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I couldn't help but reflect on the events that had nearly torn our family apart. The memories were still fresh, like an open wound, but the pain had dulled to a steady ache. The sound of footsteps on the creaky floorboards snapped me out of my reverie, and I turned to see Derek approaching, a glass of lemonade in each hand. "Thought you might need a refreshment," he said, handing me one of the glasses as he settled beside me on the swing. I took a sip, savoring the tart sweetness on my tongue. "Thanks," I murmured, leaning into his side as he draped an arm around my shoulders. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the last rays of sunlight fade into twilight. It was Derek who finally broke the stillness. "I've been thinking a lot lately," he began, his voice heavy with emotion, "about everything that happened with Ethan." I tensed, the memories threatening to resurface like a tidal wave. "Derek, we don't have to." But he shook his head, cutting me off gently. "No, I need to say this. I owe you an apology, Daff." I frowned, confusion knitting my brows together. "An apology? For what?" Derek sighed, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and regret. "For not believing you, for letting Ethan's lies and manipulation cloud my judgment. You tried to warn me, time and time again, but I was too blinded by my loyalty to him to see the truth." His words hung in the air, weighted with the burden of his remorse. I reached out, taking his hand in mine and giving it a gentle squeeze. "You have nothing to apologize for," I said softly. "Ethan was a master manipulator. He knew exactly which buttons to push, how to exploit the love and trust between brothers. You're not to blame for his actions." Derek shook his head, his jaw clenched with determination. "Maybe not, but I still should have listened to you. You're my partner, my equal in every sense of the word, and I let my family ties override that." I studied his face, seeing the depth of his resolve etched into every line and wrinkle. This was a man who had been through the fire and emerged stronger, wiser, and more committed to the values that truly mattered. "What's done is done," I said finally. "All we can do now is learn from it, grow from it, and never let anyone, family or otherwise, come between us again." Derek nodded, his eyes shining with a renewed sense of purpose. "You're right. From now on, it's you and me against the world. No more hidden facades, no more secrets. Just honesty, trust, and the knowledge that we're stronger together than we could ever be apart." As the last traces of daylight faded into the inky blackness of night, we sat there together, our hands intertwined and our hearts beating in sync. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. We had weathered the storm, and our bond had emerged tempered and unbreakable. Ethan's betrayal had been a harsh lesson, but it had also been a reminder of the importance of integrity, of holding fast to the values that truly mattered. And as we embarked on this new chapter of our lives, I knew that we would face whatever challenges lay ahead with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper appreciation for the strength of our love.
Finally, the last interview is here. But in front of me, the head interviewer ripped up my resume and asked, "Who would hire such a low-level former janitor? Tell me if you know of anyone who would be interested in hiring someone as low-level as you. I'll give them a call here." However, this interviewer is still in the dark. I get it. Then I'll give them a call. What? Them? Are you able to attend the interview? My parents are being called by the interviewer. Who? They are. Max Johnson is my name. I'm a 24-year-old part-time employee who attends night classes at college and works as a janitor during the day. Although I'm not precisely impoverished, my parents separated when I was 20 years old, citing their desire to follow their hobbies free from familial obligations. My dad and I have been alone ever since. Due to their amicable divorce, my parents are still friendly and stay in contact, despite the fact that my dad has taken numerous business trips and continues to travel the world. Despite the fact that we do not live together, I also get along well with my mother. I have been working part-time without a regular job up until this age, since I have always had a strong desire to travel, not only domestically, but internationally. Since my father had a long history of going overseas for work, I have naturally been interested in other nations since I was a little child. I still don't understand a lot of things about the world. I will never be able to fully comprehend it by merely watching TV, reading periodicals, or using the internet. I'd like to visit there myself. I want my own eyes to see it, my own skin to feel it. In light of this, I made use of my extended breaks throughout my high school years to travel to my father's areas and check out a variety of tourist destinations, including some lesser-known ones. I developed an obsession with international travel during that time. I went on business travels abroad with my father immediately after high school. During that time, I also began working remotely. When I got back home, I started working as a janitor and used my free time to travel around the nation. Finding places I haven't gone to is now more difficult than finding places I have. I still work part-time today, and I'm thankful to my parents for providing me with experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise. One day, when I told my mother, "I think there's no place where I've never been in this country anymore," she suggested, "Well, maybe it's time to try being a full-time worker." It's true that I've traveled all around the world, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say I've conquered the U.S. as well. Most people my age have regular jobs and are working. I've also been thinking about becoming an office worker eventually, so it seemed like good timing. However, with no real work experience and not even being able to fill out a proper resume, I wondered if there was any company that would hire me. While I was thinking about this, my mother introduced me to a certain trading company, and I ended up having an interview. They had already hired me as a remote worker, so the interview was more of a formality for converting me into a regular worker. Although I had been working as a part-time worker, it was my first time setting foot in this company, and I was a bit nervous. It was an interview for a well-respected major corporation that everyone admires, so even if it was just a formality, I felt a sense of tension. I'd been introduced by my mom, so I shouldn't get too complacent. I quietly motivated myself as I walked into the venue. When I was called in and entered the room, 3 interviewers sat across a long table: an elderly man, a middle-aged woman, and a fit woman. "Please, have a seat." "Thank you." I took a seat on a pipe chair, and the 3 of them introduced themselves in order as Brown, Garcia, and Miller. After shaking hands and saying, "Nice to meet you," we began with formal self-introductions. When it was over, the atmosphere changed drastically. "Well, your highest level of education is high school, and you're now working as a part-time worker." "Yeah, that's right." "Mr. Johnson, didn't you go to college?" "After graduating from high school, I went to live with my father overseas, so I didn't pursue further education and instead took part-time jobs." "I see. It says part-time work here too. Was it all remote work then?" "Yes, that's correct. I didn't work outside. I received work orders from your company and completed them from home." "I see." It was tense. Brown and Garcia exchanged glances, forcing smiles and sighing. "What kind of work did you do remotely?" "Yes, I mainly did translation work for data written in foreign languages." "Translation, huh? Well, your father actually works overseas, and they say translation apps have improved quite a bit now." "What? Oh, never mind. I was talking about something else." "What did she just say?" "I don't mean to brag, but I've received high praise for my performance as a part-time worker and have been entrusted with one job after another." "But do they think I'd use a translation app? Do they think my father does the translation for me? Am I being misunderstood?" 3 years of remote part-time work overseas and 3 years since returning to this country. It's been all remote work, right? Have you ever worked in an office? No, I haven't. I originally worked remotely, so there was no need to come to the office. So, is it that a shut-in has finally decided to enter society? For a moment, I didn't understand what they were saying. Well, that's right. I mean, 6 years of remote part-time work is not much different from being a shut-in. That's right. And that part-time job seems quite suspicious. Translation work can now be done by machines to some extent. Maybe you only worked a few hours a week. Brown and Garcia ridiculed me, making fun of me together. Besides, he also has a job as a janitor. In this country, that's quite a low-level job, isn't it? Indeed, it's the perfect job for a shut-in. A decent person wouldn't do such work. They pointed at my resume, laughed, looked at my face, and smirked at each other. Ah, well, it's true that I've only done remote work other than being a janitor. But I have extensive experience living abroad, and I'm confident in my language skills. I handle all the translation work myself. Speaking of experience living abroad, you're just a shut-in. Even if you're confident in your language skills, well, there are students around who have studied abroad and speak fluently. That alone isn't enough. Their condescending attitude was getting to me, and my head was starting to hurt. The other pit, Miller, seemed to be focused on taking notes and didn't stop them or react in any way. What's going on? Wasn't this supposed to be a formality? I was desperately trying to endure my anger. Someone, please tell me if they'd hire someone like this? Acting all high and mighty just because your parent had a little overseas assignment. Well, I'd love to see your parent. You're absolutely right. Do you even know the competition ratio for our company's entrance exam? There's no way they'd reserve a spot for a bottom-tier candidate like you. Brown said this as he playfully shook my resume. Garcia agreed, tearing it up with enthusiasm. As I witnessed this, something inside me snapped. You want to see my parents? Yeah, I bet you're curious. I mean, how can you even submit such a blank resume? No qualifications, no educational background. Do you take pride in your language skills? Well, that's up for debate too. I'd really like to know what kind of education you've had. Well, it's clear that having a single parent is a disadvantage. No matter how much overseas experience you have, you're still nothing more than a bottom feeder. Unable to endure their conversation any longer, I said, Excuse me, may I say something? What? Can I help you with something? Are you leaving? No way, we haven't finished the interview yet. Facing the two mocking individuals once again, I took a deep breath before speaking. You mentioned wanting to see my parents. Well, my mother actually works at this company. Can I call her here now? Well, technically, it should be the father, right? But either is fine if it allows us to see their face. We grant permission. Please, go ahead. Thank you. I took out my smartphone from my bag and called my mother. Meanwhile, Brown and Garcia continued to smirk, making me feel disgusted. My mother picked up after 2 rings, and I put the call on speaker. Mom, sorry for bothering you, but could you come to the meeting room where I'm having an interview? Is something wrong? I'll be right there. Just wait a moment. As soon as they heard my mother's voice, Brown and Garcia frowned. Wait, did you just hear that voice? No way, right? Ignoring the bewildered pair, Miller calmly got up and began preparing tea. A few minutes later, as the meeting room door opened and a woman appeared, Brown and Garcia hastily stood up with surprised faces. President? Excuse me for asking, but what are you doing here? Hey, good job, everyone. How did the interview go? It went smoothly. I see. Miller, please report. Yes. Miller, who hadn't uttered a word until now, provided a brief report on the interview. I see. So that's why I was called in. Max, I'm sorry for being late. No, it's fine. As the two of us engaged in conversation, Brown and Garcia, who were comparing us, seemed to grow paler and paler. Nice to meet you. I'm the mother of the bottom-tier guy, Ava Taylor, who you two were just talking about. Smiling at the two, My mother, in fact, is the president of this company. You wanted to see my face, didn't you? But you two already saw it in yesterday's web conference, didn't you? Is it not enough yet? You what? No way. Facing the two, who were gaping like fish out of water, my mother delivered the final blow. I encouraged him to take up remote work so he could freely travel overseas because I was delighted that he developed an interest in the world after graduating from high school. When my mother found out that I was going to follow my father, she was delighted. She immediately arranged remote work for me, saying, "With remote work, you can do your job from anywhere in the world, so you can enjoy traveling to your heart's content. Go explore the world and broaden your horizons as much as you want." The reason I returned to this country was that my father asked me to support my mother since he was staying in China. The reason I took up the job of a janitor was that I was surprised and became interested in the cleanliness of Japanese offices when I traveled, which was different from overseas. I wanted to know how they managed to keep the offices so clean, and it also offered relatively flexible hours, which worked out well for me. Also, it seems like you doubt my son's language abilities, but his father is Chinese. My son is trilingual, proficient in English, Chinese, and Japanese. Trilingual? My son does most of the translation work for the company's reports coming from overseas branches. The report from the Chinese branch that you saw during yesterday's meeting, it was translated by my son. Are you suggesting that he used a translation app for that? Are you mocking my decision to recommend him? We didn't mean to. Under my mother's intimidating presence, the two of them had completely lost their words. When my mother's anger subsided a bit, Brown and Garcia, for some reason, started directing their anger toward Miller. Did you know? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. You knew this guy is the president's son, didn't you? It's hard to believe that you, the president's secretary, didn't know about the boss's son. Yes, of course, I knew him. However, I was instructed not to interfere with the president's affairs. What did you say? Such a conversation only further fueled my mother's anger. At first, my intention was to make it just a formality and let you conduct a superficial interview. Then why? But then I noticed something strange. When you two conducted the interviews, the number of candidates being hired was extremely low. When I had Miller bring the resumes from that time, I found several highly talented individuals who had been rejected. It seemed very suspicious. Well, it's because. That's why. I'm sorry. But I had Miller join as the recorder, partly for monitoring purposes. Miller also has a voice recorder hidden on her, so I'm looking forward to listening to it later. President, that was a rather harsh situation, so please be careful when you listen to it. Thank you. Wait, President. This is a... What? Is there any problem? Seeing the pale faces of the two when she received the voice recorder from Miller, my mother smiled. In any case, I'll take this matter seriously. We'll discuss your punishment later. Prepare for it. Miller, may I ask you to see off my son? Of course. Max, I'm sorry for not informing you and using you like this. Well, if that's the case, you can't help it. Thanks for coming. Oh, you don't need to thank me. I watched my mother leave with a kind smile, and then, guided by Miller, I headed to the office entrance. When I left the room, the last image I saw of Brown and Garcia was them kneeling there in a state of shock. 1 month later, I went through another interview, which was also a formality, and I passed successfully. I started my life as a company employee for the first time. My mother was amazed, but I wanted to understand the company from the inside, so I chose to start as a janitor. Balancing work and evening classes was challenging, but I found it enjoyable, with plenty of new things to learn. When I asked my mother why she had encouraged me to become a regular employee, she said with a childlike, innocent smile, "I've always wanted you to be my successor. I thought that if I didn't act now, you might set off somewhere again soon, 'cause you love traveling. I felt it was now or never." After that interview, Brown and Garcia were both dismissed from their positions due to disciplinary action. It turned out that the two of them had conspired together to reject overly talented candidates, those with single parents or undesirable educational backgrounds, and students who posed a threat to their positions in the company. They used abusive language during interviews and even engaged in coercive interviews, which is quite rare nowadays. Furthermore, as investigations continued, it was revealed that the two of them were involved in an extramarital affair and had also embezzled a small amount of money. Video evidence from surveillance cameras confirmed their actions, leaving them with no room for denial. My mother expressed her regret, saying, "As the president, it's shameful that I didn't notice these wrongdoings earlier. From now on, I'll pay closer attention to each and every employee." A year had passed since I became a regular employee. By this time, my business trips, under the guise of inspections, had increased. My company had branches throughout the U.S. and overseas, which allowed me to travel the world once again. The perspective of the world during business trips was entirely different from that of leisure travel, and I found it exciting and fascinating. I never expected that I would continue traveling the world even after starting my career, so I am truly grateful to my mother. My father even said, "If you ever come to China, let's have a meal together," and I'm looking forward to that as well. While conducting inspections, in parallel, I continued my translation work as before. Additionally, I started providing monthly language training sessions within the company and was entrusted with the role of instructor. Occasionally, I still took on cleaning duties, and since graduating from night school, I had seriously begun studying business management. This made my days even busier and more hectic, but I found them fulfilling and satisfying. Several years later, I was promoted to vice president of the company. I had risen to the level of my mother's equal. Of course, I was still far from being a seasoned business leader, and I felt that catching up with my mother was an impossible task. However, my mother smiled at the people involved and said, "Starting next year, I plan to entrust the position of president to my son." I found myself filled with trepidation every day. "Mom, becoming the president is impossible for me. I still have a lot to learn, and I don't have the trust of the employees. It's too much of a burden." I burst into the president's office, and my mother responded, feigning innocence. "Oh, is that so? I think it's really a good thing. You gain experience in everything when you're young. Trust from the employees isn't something that increases in a day. You earn it little by little. But now isn't the time for that. You'll build it up through your work as the president." But everyone feels uncertain. At first, I did too. But a company isn't something you run alone. When you become president, there will be times when you're unsure for a while. In those times, consult with those around you. Rely on them. Even if the results seem wrong, believe in yourself and the people around you. If you do that, you'll naturally become a good president without even realizing it. "Mom, I'm looking forward to seeing a splendid president in you," Max said. Inspired by my mother's words, I reflected on my tumultuous life so far and managed to motivate myself. When I thought about becoming the president, I realized how narrow my perspective had been due to the pressure. All right, I'll do my best in my own way. Yes, I'm rooting for you. It seems that from the next season, Miller will become my exclusive secretary, which is reassuring. I'll support you with all my might, so please don't worry, Miller said. Hearing that, I felt a bit relieved. Although I kept it a secret from my mother, after passing on the role of president to me, my mother plans to go to China. It seems my father has bought an apartment in Shanghai and invited her to live there with him. My mother, perhaps out of embarrassment, said, I thought, why not go along with it? But when I saw her happy expression, I couldn't help but nod eagerly. After retiring as president, my mother will take on the title of chairman, but she said, I want to see the world and experience it like my son does. I plan to engrave in my memory the world that both of you found so captivating. So even if some troubles happen, Please don't call me back too often." And she laughed. It seems she envied me as she watched me traveling around the world, reporting happily with souvenirs and photos, and now wishes to embark on a world tour herself. Someday, looking forward to my mother's stories from her travels, I decided to send her off. "President, about tomorrow's schedule." "Yeah, sure. Also, could you please review these documents?" "Oh, understood." Since becoming the president, I have been working tirelessly every day. However, recently, I have been feeling a certain change within myself. "President, is something bothering you?" "Oh no, it's nothing. Just get back to work." "Understood." As Miller returned to the secretary's office, I sighed. For quite some time now, my gaze had been involuntarily following Miller. Initially, she had been a reliable support to me when I first became the president. That hadn't changed. However, a different feeling had started to grow inside me. I wasn't sure how Miller felt about it, but I believe she didn't dislike me, or at least I hope so. It was a professional relationship, and I hadn't conveyed my feelings. But lately, I had been feeling frustrated about it. One day, my mother suddenly returned and visited the company. "Max, long time no see." "Mom, what brings you here all of a sudden?" "Well, your father said he's on a business trip to the U.S., so I decided to come along." "I see. So Dad isn't here today?" "Yes, he is." "How about the three of us have a meal together?" "Sure." As I engaged in a lively conversation with my enthusiastic mother, Miller, who had prepared tea, entered from behind. "Please have a seat here." "Oh, Miller. Thank you." "Not at all. There are no urgent matters for now, President, so please take your time." "Oh, I see. Thank you." "You're welcome." Miller served tea for me and my mother and then smiled kindly before returning to the secretary's office. Observing us, my mother's expression loosened into a sly smile. "Hey, is there something going on between you and Miller? When did that happen?" "Well, it's not really like that." "Even if you say that with such a bright red face, it's not very convincing." For some reason, my mother seemed to have noticed. "Miller doesn't seem entirely uninterested either. It's fine." "Oh, what?" She nodded, clapped her hands together, and approached me. "It's fine. It's fine. You two look great together. I'd be so happy if you both got together." "No, I mean, just let me talk to her for a bit." "Mom." My mother headed toward the secretary's office, bringing Miller along. "Do you have someone special? What do you think about Max?" "Huh. What are you?" "Don't hold back. I think of you as my own daughter. I'd be overjoyed if you two got together." Sorry. My mother is just going off on her own." Despite my immediate apology, Miller also blushed as she looked at me. Though she could refuse, she instead said, "Give me some time." "Understood," I replied. "Max, do your best. It's really enough already, so please stop." I sighed in frustration at my mother's interference, but my heart raced because Miller didn't refuse. Perhaps there's hope for me too. Thinking that, I became even more aware of it and felt flustered. I wonder if Miller felt something similar. The awkward atmosphere was frustrating, and a few days later, I confessed, and we started dating. Of course, we were in a romantic relationship, but also president and exclusive secretary at the same time. Mixing business with personal matters wouldn't be good, so we kept work and personal life separate in our minds. Not much progress had been made. However, we went on dates and traveled together on our days off. It turned out that Miller had experienced traveling abroad, and travel became a shared hobby. We looked forward to the time we spent together, thinking about where to go next on our days off more than anything else. And I wanted to be with her all the time. Miller. President, what's wrong? Well, today is your birthday, isn't it? Yes, that's right. One day, after work, I nervously called her and took out a small box. "What is this?" Seeing the box, she seemed to understand what was about to be said. She swallowed hard, tears welling up in her eyes as she looked at me. Though my heart felt like it might burst from nervousness, I took a deep breath and spoke. "I'm still immature, but I promise to make you happy. Would you marry me?" As I presented the large diamond ring inside, she gently enveloped it with both her hands and said, "Yes, of course." I felt relieved and started to cry. "Why are you crying, Max?" "Because I'm just so relieved. Thank you." And so, we officially became engaged. We decided to get married within the year and hold our wedding ceremony overseas next year. With our busy jobs and now as an engaged couple, we couldn't travel around the world like we used to. But we found even greater happiness and fulfillment. I gazed at a photo of my parents, smiling on a postcard they sent. Although they hadn't remarried, seeing them enjoy their retirement together freely and lovingly made me think, I want to become a couple like them. With that goal in mind, we will continue to work hard together. Where do low-educated individuals work? If you're employed at a better company than me, I'll approve the marriage. When Richard, my future father-in-law, learned that I had completed high school, his perspective completely shifted. Being employed by a corporation worth $130 million must have made him feel immensely pleased. Richard had no idea that what he had said would soon come back to haunt him. I took him to my workplace as he requested, and his once assured manner soon broke down. "Daniel is my name. I'm officially introducing myself to my fiance's family right now. I've heard that you've been seeing my daughter for nearly a decade. Isn't that a little too long before thinking about marriage, in your opinion?" My future father-in-law, Richard, gave me a chilly critical glance. Richard was stern and severe, as my fiancé had warned me. He had been raising my fiancé alone since his wife died in an accident. It's understandable that he would be worried about my money and character before letting his daughter marry me, as it must have been an extremely challenging voyage. I've heard that Richard works for a big company as an elite employee. He must be a very successful and disciplined person in contrast to me, a recent high school graduate. You're correct. I said, perhaps we ought to have thought about getting married sooner. But I wanted to wait until I could guarantee that I could make her happy. I work in the IT field, and it took me a long time to develop enough knowledge and abilities to feel confident in my position. Oh, so you're an IT as well? Richard's grim face appeared to soften for a second. My business is also in the IT industry. Maybe I misjudged you. The IT industry is challenging. Yes, it truly is. There are always new technologies coming out. To be honest, it's difficult to keep up. I understand exactly what you're saying. Working hard isn't enough. You also need to remain knowledgeable and learn new things all the time, even when you're not working. I undoubtedly made my daughter feel lonely because I gave up a lot of personal time for my profession. According to what I've heard, you reared her alone. She is undoubtedly aware of and grateful for all that you have done for her. The strained atmosphere of earlier had vanished entirely. Maybe we were able to relate since we were in the same industry and had similar challenges. I felt as though he was becoming more receptive to me and that I may gain his acceptance. By the way, Daniel, you must have graduated from a good university, right? No, I didn't go to university. Richard's previously relaxed expression stiffened instantly. His gaze now carried an unmistakable sense of disdain. You're a high school graduate? How do you expect to support my daughter? Veins bulged on his forehead as he shouted. I've encountered people like Richard before, those who firmly believe in academic elitism. While education isn't everything, it's undeniably a form of status and can have a significant impact on lifetime earnings. So, in a way, I understood why he was angry. To him, trusting his precious daughter to a high school graduate must have seemed unthinkable. You said you work for an aid company, but I bet it's just some small, insignificant firm, isn't it? His tone was dripping with mockery. He was looking down on me simply because I was a high school graduate. I can't let my daughter marry someone like you. Please leave immediately. I'd remained silent and listened to Richard's words. This wasn't the first time I had experienced something like this. It reminded me of an incident nearly 10 years ago, back when I had been out of high school for about 3 years. This was a story from nearly 10 years ago. It was not something I like to talk about. But my family was poor. My father passed away when I was small, and I was raised by only my mother. She couldn't afford to send me to university, and with her constantly battling illness, her income was barely enough to get by. I was barely surviving each day, so I could never bring myself to tell my frail mother that I wanted to go to university. Sigh. Another day of overtime. Huh. After graduating high school, I found a job at a small local company near my home. The work was demanding, but the pay was low. As a fresh high school graduate, my tasks mostly consisted of organizing documents or preparing materials for meetings. Nothing more than tedious, time-consuming work. Even a high school graduate should be able to handle filing. You should be grateful we're even letting you work here. I heard remarks like that almost every day. Honestly, it was painful. If it weren't for my sickly mother, I would have quit that job in a heartbeat. The salary was barely enough. I was never able to leave on time. Every day, I felt my mental and physical health deteriorating, drowning in a monotonous cycle of paperwork with no sense of fulfillment or enjoyment. And yet, I endured it for 3 long years, pushing myself to the limit, all because I wanted to make life a little easier for my mother. So when, one day, out of nowhere, the company went under due to financial troubles, a part of me felt relieved. I was finally free from this miserable routine. That was my first thought. But what now? Being a high school graduate and unemployed, that's not a great situation, is it? There was no time to bask in the feeling of freedom. After all, I was just a high school graduate. Most companies weren't looking to hire someone like me. Even though my previous job was low-paying and dull, the fact that I had managed to secure a full-time position at all had been a stroke of luck. Starting tomorrow, I'll have to job hunt again. Or rather, look for a new job from scratch. I wasn't looking forward to it. For the past 3 years since high school, all I had done was file paperwork. How many companies would be eager to hire a high school graduate whose only skill was organizing documents? Slumping my shoulders, I left the office for the last time. I needed to go home and tell my mother about the company's closure. The thought weighed heavily on me. I intended to head straight home, but for some reason, my feet wouldn't move. There you are. Just then, someone appeared in front of me. It was her. Her name was Emily. She was an employee at one of our client companies. Looking back on that monotonous and exhausting job, the only thing I ever looked forward to was talking to Emily. We saw each other a few times a month for work-related matters. Since we were close in age, we had gone out for drinks together a few times. "Oh, Emily? What are you doing here? You look exhausted." Emily was catching her breath, hands on her knees. Sweat glistened on her forehead, and the top button of her pantsuit was undone, probably to let in some air. She grabbed her collar, fanning herself before stepping closer to me. "Hey, why don't we start a company together?" "Huh? A company? You mean you want me to join yours?" "No, not that. I mean, let's start our own business. Your company went under, right? I actually just quit my job, too." For a moment, I couldn't process what she was saying. The company she worked for was fairly large. It was nothing like the small, struggling firm I had been at. Even though I, a high school graduate, might not have been in a position to judge, Emily was undeniably talented. She was bright, proactive, and constantly came up with creative ideas that turned into successes. If she had stayed at her job, her future would have been secure. She would never have to worry about money, and in a few years, she would likely have climbed the corporate ladder to a respectable position. Wait, is this for my sake? Ha! Why would I quit my job just for you, Daniel? Well, yeah, I guess that wouldn't make sense. The idea that Emily had quit her job just to start a company with me was an embarrassing misunderstanding. My face felt hot. I had already planned to leave. The pay was good, but the company was full of older employees, and honestly, they were all pretty stubborn. Ah, yeah, I get what you mean. They probably stuck to outdated methods, making everything inefficient and honestly kind of boring. Companies that fail to adapt to the times don't last long. The company I had worked for was a perfect example of that. They clung to old-fashioned methods, refusing to embrace new technology. They simply wouldn't use it. The document filing job I had been doing was a prime example. All of it could have been managed digitally. Instead, everything had to be printed, checked manually, and stamped with a seal. Honestly, it was a complete waste of time. The future is an aita. But I don't have any knowledge or skills in that field. What about you, Emily? Me? Nope. But I have a plan, so it'll work out. Baseless confidence. But to me, in that moment, it was dazzling. With no degree, no job, and feeling like I had hit rock bottom, Emily's proposal seemed like something I could throw myself into completely, something worth clinging to. To put it simply, I wanted to take a chance on her. After all, I was already at my lowest. If things didn't work out, nothing would really change anyway. I heard your company went under, so I came straight over after submitting my resignation to recruit you myself. Well, thanks I guess. But why me? I'll say it again. I was just a high school graduate. I had spent 3 years in a company doing nothing but organizing documents and preparing presentation materials. Those weren't exactly impressive, marketable skills. I figured you'd be the only one willing to take a chance on my gamble. And besides, I see your value. My value? What do you mean? Your personality, Daniel. You're patient, hardworking, and serious. I've always thought that if I ever started my own business, you'd be the first person I'd invite. She extended her hand toward me. So, let's start this together. We're both starting from zero, but we'll figure it out somehow. If we failed, both of us would be out on the streets in a few years. But if we succeeded, we'd make more money than we ever dreamed of. Maybe I could finally give my mother a better life. All right, I'll take that bet. Emily. I grasped her small hand firmly. For a moment, she winced slightly. Maybe I had squeezed a little too hard. Then from now on, let's support each other. She smiled as she spoke, and for a second, it felt like a marriage proposal. The first few years after we started the company were nothing but struggle. First and foremost, neither of us had any real knowledge or experience in aita. For the entire first year, we spent all our time studying and figuring things out as we went. We were lucky to make just enough money to keep the company afloat. When we received our first significant payout, it felt like all our struggles had finally paid off. Emily and I celebrated by bar hopping until morning. Of course, the next day, we were both completely drained and barely managed to get through work. But looking back, it's one of my fondest memories. But those tough yet exhilarating days started to fade around our third year in business. This is bad, Emily muttered as she stared at the monitor. The screen displayed a line graph of our company's performance. Looking at the data, it was clear our numbers had taken a sharp downturn over the past 2 months. Those bastards stole our idea, Emily sighed, rubbing her temples in frustration. She was talking about the large company we had been working with for about a year. At first, things had been going well. But a few months ago, the situation took a turn. That company had outright stolen our idea. We had mentioned our launching project to them during a meeting, accidentally. Both Emily and I were first-time business owners. Our inexperience, combined with our naive trust in industry partners, had led to our declining performance. It was our own fault, in a way, but what they did was still unforgivable. I understood why Emily was so frustrated. I don't want to say we have no choice, but they have way more capital and staff than we do. Yeah, and they got our idea out to market before we could. Even if we complain now, nothing would change. In business, whoever gets an idea out first holds the advantage. We'll have to pivot to another idea. That's our only way to recover. I knew, but Emily looked pale. She wasn't her usual energetic self. Her face was clouded with worry. Is something wrong? Actually, my father told me that if our performance keeps declining, I should shut down the company and find a job elsewhere. She sighed, her shoulders slumping. Emily's father had provided the initial funding to start our business. In other words, our company was built entirely on his investment. That meant she couldn't just ignore his demands. Even if we have ideas, we don't have the budget to execute them. Without money, there's nothing we can do. Once again, it all came down to money. I had given up on university because of money. I had endured a soul-crushing job just to make ends meet. What are we going to do? It hurt to see Emily so defeated. For now, let's try crowdfunding to raise funds. Will that be enough? Maybe not, but I'll figure something out. Emily had been the one to pull me out of rock bottom. I was only here now because she had extended a hand to me when I had nothing. So this time, it was my turn to help her. From that day forward, my battle began. Though calling it a battle might be an exaggeration, or rather, there wasn't much I could do. The only thing I was capable of was going around to friends, business contacts, and relatives, bowing my head and asking for help. We have an idea that can make money. Even a small investment would help. Would you consider funding us? If we can bring this idea to life, our company will survive. And then, I can finally give Emily and my mother the life they deserve. Day after day, whenever I had time, I went around bowing my head, asking for help. I didn't care how many times I had to bow because, honestly, the only weapon I had was my not-so-great brain. At first, I was rejected coldly over and over. But little by little, as people started to understand my determination, some began to say they were willing to invest. I know how hard you're working for your mother, Daniel. If it's just a small amount, I'd be happy to invest. Hearing those words nearly brought me to tears. And finally, between crowdfunding and private investments, we secured the funds we needed. I'm sorry. I had no idea you were doing all of that behind the scenes, Daniel. I did it on my own, so you don't need to feel bad. But I guess it was worth the effort. Yeah, thanks to you, we secured the funds we needed. Now we can hire more people. Emily clenched her fist with determination. This time, we'll do it right. I'm going to make sure this idea comes to life. She was smiling. How long had it been since I last saw her genuinely smile? Emily looked best when she was smiling. From there, everything moved quickly. Emily was always a talented person. Having our idea stolen had crushed her spirit recently, but securing enough funding seemed to have rekindled her drive. In fact, she was more determined than ever. Within a few months, we brought the idea to life and officially launched it. The business took off, and our company's growth skyrocketed. Now I don't have to quit the company anymore. That's great. But Emily, are you sure you're okay staying as a regular employee? You're the co-founder, so you could take a higher position. No way. I don't need titles like manager or director. I just want to enjoy my work. Emily was able to stay with the company. The business expanded, and by the following year, we were opening branch offices. But Emily insisted on remaining a regular employee. She dumped all the tedious executive work on me, happily staying busy with the projects she enjoyed. I liked seeing her that way. This was a story from a few years ago. Now, our company has grown significantly, with multiple branches across the country. Things have finally settled down, and naturally, the thought of marriage started crossing my mind. I'm home. Emily walked in. Richard clicked his tongue in disapproval, a deep frown on his face. Pa. Why does it feel so tense in here? What happened? What happened? You've been dating a high school graduate. Well, yeah, he is a high school graduate, but I don't need your excuses. Stay out of this. Ignoring Emily, Richard turned back to me. I work at Bright Sky Corporation, a company with a market capitalization of $130 million. And where exactly do you work? His condescending tone was impossible to miss. To be honest, it didn't feel great, but I understood his perspective. He had raised his daughter alone and wanted her to marry someone worthy. That was only natural. I work at, let me guess, some insignificant company. Richard didn't even try to hear me out. With a sneer, he tapped his fingers on the table. If you work somewhere better than me, then I'll allow the marriage. I see. Well, I actually have some business at the office today. Would you like to come with me? What? What are you talking about? I think it'll be easier if you see it for yourself. That sounds great. I think that's the fastest way. Let's go check out Daniel's workplace, Dad. I bet you'll be surprised. Hemph. Well, if you insist. With Emily's encouragement, we all headed to my company. It's been a while since I've been here. I've been doing a lot of field work lately. As Emily looked up at the towering office building, she spoke. Hey, who said I wanted to go to my own company? This is my headquarters. The place we arrived at was one of the largest corporate buildings in the country, not far from Emily's home. I told you to take me to your company. This is my company. What? With a bewildered Richard in tow, I stepped through the entrance. A secretary who had been waiting at the reception approached us. The president, Mr. Carter. We've been expecting you. Her gaze was fixed on me. Wait, what is this? Richard's face turned visibly pale. It was clear he had no idea. Dad, the company you work for is one of our branch offices. Daniel is the president of the main headquarters. What did you just say? You mean the company you founded is? Yeah, Bright Sky Corporation. I'm just a regular employee, though. She downplayed it, but without Emily, this company would never have grown so big. There was no way I could have built a $130 million company on my own. You really didn't know I was the president, did you? Maybe I should make more public appearances. You, don't do that. It's just a hassle to be famous. She brushed it off, but the fact that Richard, a full-time employee, didn't even recognize his own company's president was a bit concerning. Sure, he worked at a branch, but he was still part of our corporation. He wasn't just a contractor or a temp worker. He was a full-time employee. It probably wasn't ideal that someone like him didn't even know who was running the company. I had no idea. I've been so disrespectful to you, Mr. Carter. I deeply apologize. His arrogant attitude from earlier had completely vanished. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he bowed deeply. Please, raise your head. I wouldn't be here today without Emily's help. I told Richard the whole story, how Emily and I started this company and built it from the ground up. Without her father's initial funding, we never could have made it this far. For that, I was truly grateful, even if Richard had once looked down on me for being a high school graduate. Still, I've shown unforgivable disrespect to you, Mr. Carter. Really, it's fine. It's true that I'm just a high school graduate. No, the truth is, my own parents didn't have much education either. We were poor, and I grew up struggling. Richard's voice softened as he began to speak. His parents had never managed to secure full-time jobs, scraping by on temporary day labor. There was never enough money in the house, and hunger was a constant companion. Tired of living like that, Richard took out student loans and put himself through university. That's where he met Emily's mother, got married, and eventually, Emily was born. After Emily was born, he became even more dedicated to his work. He wanted a higher paying job. He wanted to make sure Emily never had to struggle financially. I raised her on my own. I didn't want her to go through the same hardships I did, so I was strict about who she could marry. Education isn't everything, of course. Higher education was important. It opened doors to bigger companies and better opportunities. I knew that better than anyone. After all, I had been rejected from countless jobs just because I was a high school graduate. I understood the harsh reality of it all. But still, there was something I had to say to Richard. Being less educated doesn't automatically mean being unhappy. There are plenty of people like me, high school graduates, who still live fulfilling lives. Though, I doubt many have been as lucky as I have. Everything I have, every bit of my success, is thanks to Emily. I see. Maybe you're right. Richard wiped the sweat from his brow and let out a deep sigh. My childhood was poor, but now that I think back on it, maybe I wasn't actually unhappy. His expression looked more at peace than before. Dad, I guess I convinced myself I was miserable, but in reality, I wasn't. Mr. Carter, no, Daniel. You helped me realize that. Richard called me Daniel. It meant he was no longer speaking to me as a president and an employee, but as Emily's boyfriend and as a father. Once again, I bowed deeply. Please allow me to marry Emily. If he was willing to speak to me as Emily's father, then I had to show him my sincerity as her future husband. I may still be young, but as you can see, I've built a company of this size. I promised I will never let Emily suffer. I know. You can raise your head now. Richard placed a firm hand on my shoulder. I looked up. Emily had stepped to my side. Richard glanced between the two of us, then smiled. Tears shimmered in his eyes. Take care of my daughter. That's all I ask. 1 year later, Emily and I got married and started living together. We had taken the long way around, gone through countless struggles, but now I was happy. Emily was by my side, and my frail mother was finally able to live comfortably. In just a few months, we would be welcoming a child into our family. Thank you. Huh. What's that for? Emily laughed as she cradled her growing belly. I just felt like saying it. Did I do something to deserve a thank you? Who knows? Maybe not. That was a lie. I had always been grateful to Emily for scouting me when I was lost after my company collapsed, for her ideas that helped our business take off. From the moment we met until now, I had always been grateful to her. Forget about that. We need to start getting ready. My dad and your mom are coming over, remember? Oh, right. I better put some effort into tonight's meal. Tonight, we were having a family dinner. Emily, me, my mother, her father, and the little one growing inside her. I had a feeling my life would always be filled with joy. As I watched Emily smiling, I was certain of it. Dude, you're past 30, still unmarried, and childless. How careless can you get? Well, Harrison, your personality has always been problematic. Your lovely facade is no longer sufficient to deceive people. And former friend made fun of me for being single at our high school reunion, despite the fact that there were other single people present. It was easy for him to speak out. You know, having children is the only way for a man or woman to truly mature into adulthood. Our generation is meant to be the foundation of society. How someone can still be out on their own is beyond me. You seem to be merely half a human. I was ready to shoot back when a beautiful woman entered through the open door. Sorry for being late. Oh, Harrison. She yelled my name, rushed to me, and grinned broadly. The mere sight of that smile made my heart sing. Then she held my hand and muttered, "I'm so happy to see you," while looking at me intensely. Talon and I had a totally different power dynamic that evening. "Harrison, help me out here." "Yeah, I'm coming." "Hey, can you help over here too?" "Me next, please." "Hey, you know that Harrison is only one guy. Give him some leeway." "If you think that, then why don't you help too?" "Mike?" My boss, Mike, merely laughed next to me as I hurried about taking calls. Here I am, as usual, working diligently with my coworkers in the workplace. My name is Harrison. I'm in my prime working years at age 31. My career is going well, the company I joined is stable, and I've moved up the ranks a little. I feel fortunate to have landed such a wonderful career, and the atmosphere at work is friendly and welcoming. Harrison, you're a very well-liked person. You would be ideal if you had a girlfriend. Mind your own business, Mike. Mike's remarks were met with laughter from voices in the department, who claimed that he was making fun of me once more. I don't have a girlfriend, so he's not entirely incorrect. But it doesn't really worry me because I have a lot of friends and a happy personal life. I briefly took a break as the burden eventually decreased. I looked through my phone's messages. My mother had left a message, as usual. "This year, do you think you'll be able to come home for Christmas? Ava and Ken are really excited to see you." My sister's children are named Ken and Ava. My sister's family hosts a Christmas celebration at our parents' house every year, but I haven't been able to go for the previous several years due to work. My niece and nephew have been pleading with me to come this time. Even though I knew the presents were the main reason they were enthusiastic, I was nonetheless excited to see them. Tell them to look forward to the gift. I sent the reply and put my phone down. Winter had arrived. Christmas was just around the corner. The office had a somewhat cheerful atmosphere, especially for those who had a partner. Watching my younger colleagues buzzing with excitement, I couldn't deny a tiny pang of envy. "Well, given the season, I guess it's just inevitable," I muttered to myself. Just then, my phone vibrated. It was a quick reply from my mom. "I'm glad you can make it this year. As for my present, your marriage announcement will do just fine." I sighed at the unnecessary comment. Ever since my sister got married, the pressure for me to do the same had only intensified. It's not like I have no interest in marriage, but it's not something I can do alone. I need a partner for that. I decided not to reply and closed the message. Then came the weekend. I headed to a bustling shopping mall filled with families enjoying their day. I had already asked my sister about my nephew and niece's preferences, but with so many options in front of me, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. "Hey, Harrison." Just as I was struggling to decide between the colorful toys neatly arranged in front of me, a voice called out from behind. I turned around to find none other than my old university classmate, Tom. "Tom, wow, it's been a while. Never expected to run into you here. Has it been since graduation?" "Yeah, I think so." Tom and I met through the same club back in college. However, he had a habit of making rude remarks to just about everyone, which led to people avoiding him. Personally, I wasn't particularly fond of him either, but since we were in the same club, I couldn't just ignore him. I tried reaching out and including him in activities. Apparently, he didn't appreciate my efforts. Before I knew it, he started resenting me. According to him, I was acting like a goody two-shoes. To make matters worse, our seniors in the club liked me, and I was even being considered as the next club president. That must have set him off. He began openly criticizing me in front of others, which only resulted in his complete isolation within the club. During that time, there was a particular girl Tom frequently approached. Her name was Malign. She was 2 years younger than us, and ever since she enrolled, she was widely recognized as a campus beauty. Despite her looks, she wasn't arrogant and treated everyone with kindness. Her gentle and polite demeanor quickly made her the idol of our university. When she joined our club, Tom immediately started aggressively pursuing her. Even from the sidelines, it was obvious that Malene was uncomfortable. Yet, he kept asking her out repeatedly, oblivious to her discomfort. One day, Malene came to me for help. "Tom's persistent invitations are really troubling me," she said. By then, I had already become the club president, so it made sense that she would turn to me for advice. "If things stay like this, I want to quit the club. But I'm scared that if I provoke him, he might do something." So, I discussed it with the other members and promised her that we would find a way to subtly keep Tom away from Malene during club activities. Thanks to everyone's cooperation, we managed to curb his relentless advances. However, in the process, Tom started viewing me as his absolute enemy. Even when other members warned him, his hostility toward me remained unchanged until graduation. Given our history, I felt nothing meeting him again after 8 years. If anything, I found it kind of a hassle. But then I noticed the woman and young boy standing beside him. "Tom, you're married." "Yeah, not that you'd know since I didn't invite you to the wedding." He smirked as he said that. Honestly, even if I had been invited, I doubt I would have attended. "Nice to meet you. I'm Megan, Tom's wife, and this is our son, Sebastian. Come on, Sebastian, say hello." "I'm Sebastian. Hello, mister." Encouraged by his mother, the little boy gave a small bow. I crouched down to his level and returned the greeting. "Hey, Sebastian. I'm Har. You're very polite. That's great." Hearing the praise, he shyly clung to his mother's skirt, smiling bashfully. Megan looked at him with a warm, gentle smile. It was such a heartwarming sight. "Harrison, how do you and my husband know each other?" "We were in the same club back in college, so we've known each other since then." "Oh, I see." As Megan and I talked, Sebastian joined in. "Wow. So you went to college to study too, mister?" "That's right. Do you like studying, Sebastian?" "Yeah, I think addition is really fun. And I like memorizing country flags too." "He's always been good at memorizing things since he was little," Megan added. "That's impressive, Sebastian." Just like before, he blushed at the compliment but grinned. He was adorable. "Hemph. Well, of course, he's my son. Being smart is just natural for him." Tom, looking smug, managed to ruin the warm moment. "So, are you here to buy toys for your kids too? Where's your family?" he asked, glancing around. "Nah, I'm just here to buy Christmas presents for my nephew and niece. I'm still single." "What? You're over 30 and still alone? That's pathetic." Tom jumped on my words immediately. I could see Megan and Sebastian stiffen at his remark. "Ah, well, I just haven't met the right person yet." I tried to keep things light, hoping to ease the tension, but Tom kept sneering. "Not like it's just about timing. Who'd want to be with a guy like you? You're good at sucking up to the higher-ups, but that doesn't work on women. Huh. Well, unlike you, I got married to her right away." He said that and put his arm around Megan's shoulder as if he was showing off. "I see. You better hurry up and get married, man. A real man only proves himself once he takes on responsibility. A happy family, an adorable kid, and a stable career. I've got it all. Meanwhile, you've got none of that, huh?" He let out a loud laugh while Megan lowered her head. I noticed Sebastian looking up at her, clearly concerned. My chest tightened at the sight. "You're coming to the reunion, right?" "Yeah, I plan to." Good, good. He smirked like he was plotting something. What is he up to now? "Well then, see you at the reunion, Harrison. Let's go." Without waiting for Megan and Sebastian, Tom walked off. Megan gave me an apologetic look, bowed slightly, and quickly took Sebastian's hand to follow after him. Some things never change. As I watched them disappear into the crowd, I let out a sigh. The college club reunion was coming up soon. The thought of seeing Tom again was exhausting, but I decided to just ignore him like I did back then and refocused on picking out gifts for my nephew and niece. The day after running into Tom, I received an email from the reunion organizer. The reunion will be held during the day. If possible, please feel free to bring your family or partner. There will be a special menu available for children if requested. That was a sudden change. Maybe more people had kids now and could only attend if they brought them along. Since the venue was a private booking at a restaurant owned by one of our former club members, it wouldn't be an issue. With the number of attendees increased, it sounded like it would be a lively gathering, and I found myself looking forward to catching up with old friends. On the reunion day, the weather was perfect, and the restaurant quickly filled with familiar faces from college. About 60% of them had brought their families or significant others. With the laughter of children mixed in, the atmosphere was warm and cheerful. "Hey, Harrison. There you are." Right at the start, Tom approached me. When I turned to him, I saw that Megan and Sebastian were with him. I nodded politely toward Megan and Sebastian waved back with a bright smile. "Man, just look around. Almost everyone here came with their family or partner. But you, Harrison, you're still alone. Huh." Tom laughed to himself, clearly enjoying the situation. Everyone at the table looked unimpressed by his attitude. "Well, I guess I'll just enjoy everyone's happiness today." "Yeah, you do that. Not that it matters, but obviously, I'm the one who's got it best here. I mean, just look at me. A beautiful wife, an adorable kid. Admit it, Harrison, you're jealous. If you want, I can let you babysit sometime. Might be good practice for your future, huh?" Haha. He was just as tactless as ever, saying things that made everyone uncomfortable. But just like during our encounter the other day, Tom's family was here. I tried my best to respond to Tom as cheerfully as possible, hoping to keep the mood from turning sour. The friend sitting next to me, one of the reunion organizers, leaned over and whispered in my ear with an exasperated sigh. Tom suddenly insisted on allowing people to bring their families or partners. I thought it was weird, but yeah, this was his plan all along. Maybe he had come up with the idea after running into me at the toy store. It was clear now. He had pushed for this setup just so he could mock me for being single at the reunion. Still, in the end, his request probably helped some people join in and enjoy the event. So I decided to give him an ironic good job in my mind and leave it at that. A real man or woman only becomes whole once they have kids. Our generation is the foundation of society after all. I can't understand people who just drift through life alone. Harrison, I tend to speak my mind. Sebastian, make sure you don't end up like this guy, okay? Tom, there are others here who came alone too. You should be more mindful of your words. Oh, there it is. Same old Harrison, playing the nice guy. You've always been good at sucking up to people, huh? But being over 30 and still single. Man, it's embarrassing to even know someone like that. He wasn't even drinking, yet he was this confrontational. That took a certain kind of talent. I suppose some things never changed. He still hated me just as much as he did in college. I started to wonder how he managed to handle workplace interactions or conversations with other parents at his kid's school. If I engaged with him any further, it would only escalate things. I decided to just keep smiling and let him talk. But this time, our old friends weren't having it. You never know what circumstances people are dealing with, so maybe try being a little more considerate. You're not a kid anymore. Think before you speak. Tom, seriously? You haven't changed at all. What? Oh, I see how it is. You guys are all on his side, huh? Wow, looks like Harrison's fooled a whole new batch of people with his fake nice guy act. Tom scowled, clearly unhappy that others were calling him out. At that moment, some of the women at the gathering, who had come with their kids, quickly stepped in to guide Mayen and Sebastian away from the table. Meanwhile, Tom kept ranting. At this point, it wasn't just me he was targeting. He was lashing out at everyone. Somehow, he hadn't changed at all. Tom, come on. You've got a wife and kid now. Maybe it's time you learned how to hold an actual conversation. You can't let your son hear you talk like that. Harrison, just ignore him. Come sit with us. Actually, I wanted to ask you about your company. I'm thinking about switching jobs. Yeah, sure. With that, my friend subtly helped me move away from Tom, and I was finally able to enjoy catching up with people without the negativity. A while later, I heard a hesitant voice behind me. Excuse me. I turned around and found Mayen standing there. I got up and greeted her properly. I just wanted to apologize for my husband's behavior earlier. I'm truly sorry. Mayen bowed deeply. It would be one thing if he apologized himself, but there was no reason for Mayen, his wife, to do so. I hurriedly told Mayen to lift her head. When she finally looked up, her face was clouded with sadness. So he's always been like that. Ever since you all knew him, she murmured. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond, but decided to be honest. Yeah, I guess you could say that. He's always had a sharp tongue and clashed with people a lot. I see. Even now, working at Sebastian's school, he keeps saying thoughtless things and upsetting people. No matter how many times I talk to him about it, he refuses to change. She said that with a troubled smile. She was Tom's wife, after all. It was easy to imagine how much she must have been through. Sebastian is a bright and well-mannered child. Thank you. Maybe even at his young age, he's learning what not to do by watching his father. I don't want him to grow up to be like that. Mayen and I both turned toward Tom. He was speaking loudly, his air of superiority evident, while the other club members around him looked visibly annoyed. I had seen this scene countless times in college, Tom alienating people one by one with his words. And here he was, doing the exact same thing years later. Harrison, I really appreciate you handling him so tactfully despite everything. Oh, it's nothing. But honestly, I think my approach just makes Tom hate me even more. I chuckled bitterly, remembering how our interactions had always been like this. If only he could recognize the kindness of those around him, maybe he could change. But I suppose that's wishful thinking. Still, I was glad I came today. When I looked away from Tom, Mayen smiled. Was it just my imagination, or did I sense a hint of determination in her smile? As I was talking with Mayen, the entrance door opened, and a woman walked in. Sorry I'm late. I'm so glad I made it. Madeline, I've missed you. Oh, our club's idol has finally arrived. The person who had just arrived was Madeline. She had clearly rushed here, her cheeks slightly flushed from exertion. The moment she stepped into the room, a wave of people surged toward her, eager to greet her. Even after all these years, she was as popular as ever. As she exchanged greetings with everyone, our eyes suddenly met. Oh, Harrison. Long time no see. She waved at me with a bright smile. Maybe because she was in a hurry, her cheeks were slightly flushed. That smile made my heart race before I knew it. She had always been a cute girl back in college, but now, after 8 years, she had matured into a stunningly elegant woman. Ah, Harrison. As I stood there, speechless, captivated by Madeline, she ran over to me. A friend nearby nudged me with his elbow, snapping me back to reality, and I hurriedly responded. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my friend smirking. Ah, Madeline. It's been a while. You look great. Thanks. You seem to be doing well too. I'm really happy to see you again. I'm happy to see you too, Madeline. When I said that, I felt like Madeline's cheeks turned even redder. Still, maybe because this was my first time talking to her since graduation, I felt unusually nervous. I struggled to keep my words from tangling as we chatted, but then she suddenly shifted her gaze to Megan. Oh, and who is this? This is Megan, Tom's wife. She's here today with their son. Nice to meet you. I'm Megan, Tom's wife. Oh, you're Tom's wife. I'm Madeline, a former junior from the club. It's a pleasure to meet you. The two of them exchanged polite greetings. For a second, Madeline looked between us and hesitated. I thought she was your wife, Harrison. Madeline looked embarrassed about her misunderstanding. Megan, watching this, smiled gently. Oh no, I was just apologizing to Harrison for my husband causing him trouble today. Don't worry about it. Ed? Wait, that's not. Ha. Wait a second. Megan, what did you just say? And why is Malene suddenly so flustered? Just as I was wondering about many things, Tom pushed through the crowd and came over. Then he stepped right up in front of Malene. Malene, long time no see. You're still as cute as ever. So, what do you do for work? Where do you live? Tom, it's been a while. Tom kept pressing toward Malene, but she slowly backed away, trying to put some distance between them. Come on, we have so much to catch up on. We should go out sometime. Ignoring her obvious discomfort, he kept pressing her with questions and even attempted to ask her out. It was as if he had completely forgotten his wife was standing right there. Seeing this, both Megan and I spoke up at almost the exact same moment. Hey Tom, back off a little. Excuse me, but can't you see that Malene is uncomfortable? Tom flinched at our sudden intervention, but after realizing who had spoken, he clicked his tongue in irritation. Hey, stay out of this and go stand near Sebastian like a proper mother. You're so useless, Megan. Tom, that's way out of line. And you're his father, aren't you? Tom's harsh words toward Megan were too much, and I couldn't help but get angry, so I called him out. Not liking what I said, Tom snapped back at me. You're single. Don't act like you know anything about family life. She's neglecting her duties as a mother, so I was just setting her straight. This isn't about being married or not. Do you not realize that your words are hurting your wife? Ha! Hurting her? Don't be ridiculous. She's crazy about me. And I'm the one putting food on the table, supporting this family. What's wrong with pointing out what she's failing to do? Tom shamelessly blurted it out, and everyone around him, including me, frowned. You wouldn't understand, Harrison. You don't know the weight of responsibility that comes with providing for a family. You don't know how exhausting it is to raise an incompetent wife and son. Even if you ever get married, it'll be to some clueless woman who fell for your fake nice guy act. You'd be lucky to be half the man I am. He threw his head back and let out a loud, arrogant laugh. It was one thing for him to insult me, but to belittle his own wife and child. That was beyond unacceptable, and I wasn't the only one who felt that way. Tom, you're absolutely disgusting. You really haven't changed at all. Malene spoke to Tom in a cold tone I'd never heard from her before. Harrison is completely right. You're the one in the wrong, Tom. Ever since college, Harrison has always been considerate of others. That's why people trust him and support him. And you? What have you ever done? You've only ever caused trouble for the people around you, making their lives harder with your selfishness. Tom was visibly shocked by Malene's words of criticism. And frankly, I don't even care if your wife is here to hear this. Do you remember when you wouldn't stop harassing me in college? No matter how many times I rejected you, you just would not take the hint. You made me so uncomfortable. And you know who helped me? Harrison and the others. They protected me from you, Tom. Thanks to them, I was able to enjoy my time in college. But now, here you are, treating Harrison like garbage when he was one of the few people who actually put up with you. I thought maybe you changed after all these years, but no, you've only gotten worse. And the way you talk to your own wife. As a woman, I refuse to let that slide. The things you just said to her are absolutely unforgivable. Applause and murmurs of agreement rose from all around in response to Meline's words. Tom probably never expected to be criticized this much by Meline, whom he once had feelings for. He was so flustered that it was almost pitiful. And then Megan quietly spoke up. "Meline, Harrison, thank you for standing up for us." She said that and quietly bowed her head. Then, as she lifted her head, she looked straight at Tom. Her expression was stern. Even Tom held his breath at Megan's look. "Tom, everything Meline just said, the way you treated everyone today, the way you insulted Harrison, nothing has changed. You haven't changed, and I refuse to play along with this family charade of yours any longer. So, I'll say this in front of everyone here. I'm divorcing you." Megan's words caused a stir among everyone present, and of course, Tom was no exception. "Ha! What are you talking about? Quit joking around. That's not funny." He tried to laugh it off, but his face was stiff. His usual cocky grin was gone. "This isn't a joke. I'm completely serious. And of course, I will be taking full custody of Sebastian." "What? Sebastian is my son. If he stays with a woman like you, he'll have a miserable life. I'll be the one to raise him." "You raise him?" Megan scoffed. "You've done nothing for him. Do you really think you're capable of being a father? You can't even hold a proper conversation with other parents at school. You isolate yourself everywhere you go. How could someone like that possibly raise a child? Don't make me laugh." Her words cut through him like a blade. Even those of us on the sidelines could tell that Megan had already made up her mind. "You've got to be kidding me. I only held back because I wanted you to grow. But if I actually did it myself, I'd obviously be way more efficient than you. And besides, a child needs his father. There's no way Sebastian would prefer a useless mother over a strong, capable father like me. And if people find out about the divorce, it'll affect my career too." Even in this situation, all Tom could do was spew selfish nonsense, caring only about his own reputation. Everyone was left speechless. Just then, Sebastian, who had been playing with the other children, somehow ended up near Megan, perhaps drawn by the commotion or simply looking for his mother. "Dad, just stop it already. Mom works so hard every day, taking care of me, taking care of you, and managing the house. So why can't you just say thank you or I'm sorry to her? Even today, you've been saying awful things to your friends, and it's embarrassing for me." Tears welled up in Sebastian's eyes as he desperately pleaded. Even Tom was at a loss for words. "I want to live with Mom. I don't ever want to live with you. You don't care about me at all, do you? But Mom does. She always thinks about me. Mom, you don't have to hold back anymore. I'll be okay, even if it's just the two of us. I just want you to be happy." Watching Sebastian cling to Megan, my chest tightened. The fact that such a young child had to feel this way spoke volumes about how Tom had treated them all this time. The cold stares from the onlookers were now directed at Tom. "Sebastian, you understand now, don't you? Both Sebastian and I have made up our minds. I don't want him to suffer anymore, so this is the end." Megan averted her gaze from Tom and turned toward us instead. "Everyone, I'm so sorry. This was supposed to be a fun gathering, but our family ended up ruining it. Meline, Harrison, thank you for looking out for us. It really meant a lot." After bowing deeply, she gripped Sebastian's hand tightly and said, "Excuse us," before leaving the venue. Tom stood there, stunned, but as the sound of the door closing snapped him back to reality, he frantically rushed after Megan and Sebastian. We were left standing in silence, processing what had just happened. Then one of the organizers spoke up. "We still have time. Should we try to start over?" The reunion resumed. At first, the atmosphere was a little awkward, but without Tom, things became much more comfortable. Before long, The lively energy returned. Despite the unexpected drama, the reunion continued peacefully. A few days later, we decided to meet up again in a smaller group to have a more relaxed conversation with the friends who had attended the reunion. I'd arrived at the meeting spot near a bustling downtown station, chatting with the others as we waited for the rest to arrive. "Hey, Harrison." A sudden voice called out. Standing there was Tom, looking exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and wearing a wrinkled shirt and coat. "Harrison, you told Megan something, didn't you?" Tom stormed toward me, shouting. "Calm down. What the hell are you talking about?" We tried to restrain him, but his anger didn't subside. She really went through with it. She left with Sebastian. She won't even answer my calls. And when I went to her parents' place, they slammed the door in my face. So Megan really did leave, taking Sebastian with her. We exchanged glances. It was unfortunate, but he had brought this upon himself. There was nothing we could do. They never defied me before. It doesn't make sense. "Harrison, I saw you talking to Megan that day. You must have filled her head with lies. You tricked her with that smooth talk of yours. Yeah, that's it. This is all your fault." Just as Tom was about to grab me, my friends held him back. "Tom, enough already. This isn't Harrison's fault. It's yours. This is the result of how you treated your wife and son. We've told you so many times, haven't we? Think before you speak, but you never listened. This is your responsibility. Not Harrison's. Not Megan's. Not Sebastian's. It's yours." As more and more friends confronted him, his aggressive energy started to fade. "Tom, Megan was struggling for a long time. Even at work, even in Sebastian's social circles, she was always dealing with the mess you made. She gave you so many signs she was at her limit, and the only person who could have seen that was you. She was your wife. Why didn't you cherish her more? Instead of blaming me, why aren't you thinking about what you can do now? Go apologize to Megan. Do it as many times as it takes." I couldn't hold back my emotions as I recalled the looks on Megan and Sebastian's faces that day. I didn't know if my words reached him, but Tom, now completely drained, mumbled something under his breath and staggered away into the crowd. Is he going to be okay? From what I heard, after his wife and kid left, he screwed up at work too. They're deciding whether to demote him or fire him. He totally did this to himself, but still, this whole thing just sucks. We stood there for a moment, watching him disappear into the crowd. Later, I heard from a friend that Tom ended up getting divorced and quitting his job. Megan and her parents remained firm in their decision, refusing to be swayed. As for his workplace, Tom, already on edge from the situation with Megan, lashed out at a junior employee. When his supervisor tried to intervene, he exploded at them too, causing a huge scandal. Turns out, when Tom came to confront us, he had already been suspended. Afterward, reports surfaced about his past behavior, poor work ethic, inappropriate remarks, and the company decided to transfer him from the main office to a remote branch. Unable to endure the decision, Tom ultimately resigned of his own accord. Now that he was completely alone, I wondered what was going through his mind. To be honest, I never liked him. He constantly threw insults at me, and I found him difficult to be around. There was nothing about his behavior that I could defend, nor did I intend to. However, losing both his family and job, the very things that upheld his self-worth, might finally make him reflect on himself, even if just a little. As for me, I never want to end up like Tom. I want to continue treating the people around me with care and kindness because I have someone I never want to lose. Harrison. Malene, hey, slow down. What if you trip? I know. Geez, you worry too much, Daddy. Malene giggled, gently rubbing her belly in front of me. That reunion had brought us together, and we started dating soon after. I was surprised to learn that Malene had liked me since her college days, but apparently, all our friends had already figured it out. She laughed and called me totally oblivious. Things moved quickly from there. We got married, and since then, we've remained close with many of our friends, as well as Megan and her son. They were there to celebrate with us, and now, Moline is carrying our child. She deeply admires Megan, who is strong and dependable, looking up to her as a mentor in motherhood. At first, Megan and Sebastian struggled financially after the divorce, but they were finally free from Tom's insults and troubles. When I saw them again, Megan looked at peace, her face radiating happiness. Sebastian, whom I hadn't seen in a while, had grown to resemble Tom in appearance, but unlike his father, he was a warm-hearted, energetic boy who always looked out for his mother, and now even for Moline during her pregnancy. I can only hope that our child grows up to be as kind-hearted as Sebastian. With effect from today, I am resigning your position with the branch manager's approval. I appreciate all of your hard work thus far. I had stepped away from the busy front desk operations to take on more subdued back office duties as I approached retirement. Under the guise of reform, the new, youthful, and energetic branch manager started getting rid of anything and everyone that was thought to be superfluous or in a way, including jobs and people. I objected. I don't understand why I'm being fired. You're in the way, the branch manager said in a frustrated tone. It irritates me to see you just sitting at your desk, doing simple things that anyone could do, and acting like you're all important. The management boldly proclaimed such ludicrous logic. So they were merely low-level jobs that anyone could complete at their own pace. I suppose there was nothing to be done about it if it was a formal order. I chose to dutifully comply with the manager's instruction. I got a lot of calls from the bank a week later. Robert is my name. As a bank employee, I frequently work in the background. I'm 51 years old now. I currently primarily manage minor administrative duties after taking a break from the hectic front desk operations. I also occasionally help loyal customers. I get nostalgic for my earlier years when I watch the youthful staff members working hard at the front desk. I work slowly on small projects, have no chance of getting promoted, and am simply waiting to retire. However, I've come to enjoy my current position. It is a relaxed style of work that is appropriate for a worker who is getting close to retirement. Actually, the majority of our branch's workers my age begin to progressively reduce their workload. Whether for familial considerations, early retirement fun, or other reasons, many people take early retirement to enjoy their later years. Taking care of grandchildren and spending time with family seem like the ideal moment for a change in lifestyle. A branch manager just retired before reaching retirement age. He desired to care for his family in his native country. He will be replaced today by a new branch manager. Hello everyone. From today, I will be serving as the new branch manager. Mark is my name. I'm excited to collaborate with each of you. During the morning meeting, Mark, the new branch manager, enthusiastically welcomed the employees. Wearing a sharp suit and a watch that looked costly, he appeared to be around 10 years younger than me. Determination was blazing in his eyes. His serious manner gave me the impression that it would be difficult to follow him. Oa, you're there. Could you immediately take me on a tour of the branch? Me? Yes, I will give you a tour. Thank you. Everyone else, please start your usual tasks. Don't mind me, just carry on as normal. Mark approached Susan, a young female employee, and started touring the branch. The rest of us, including myself, got on with our usual tasks. Excuse me. What task are you working on? Suddenly, a loud voice from above startled me. Whoa, you scared me. I accidentally blurted out. Looking up, I saw Mark, arms crossed and looking somewhat disgruntled. Susan glanced over in a puzzled manner. What's this? Mark asked, looking at my work. I honestly replied, I'm checking and entering application forms. Mark sighed heavily. Honestly, I've never seen such a laid-back workplace before, he complained with a look of utter exasperation. By laid back, you mean? Exactly as it sounds. At the branch I'd worked at before, no employee would spend time on such tasks. I'm surprised to find employees specialized in back office work here. Checking and entering documents may not be a big job, but it's necessary. In tasks involving large amounts of money, even small mistakes aren't tolerated. I think someone has to do it. I didn't know how it was at his previous branch, but was there really no one doing back office work? I almost retorted that, but it felt too bothersome. So I just responded nonchalantly, "Is that so?" and forced a smile. Susan, who was anxiously watching, seemed pitiful. I thought if I let it slide, Mark would just leave. But for some reason, he stayed and seemed to be contemplating. Then, with a decisive nod, as if having made up his mind, Mark started speaking to no one in particular. Decided. Starting tomorrow, this branch will undergo a reform. The next day, true to his word, Mark began implementing reforms at the branch. First, he replaced almost all the equipment in the office with new ones. I wondered where the budget for that came from. Then, he increased the workload of the younger and mid-level employees, especially at the front desk. The clerical tasks that used to be sent to the back office were now less frequently assigned to me. Thanks to this, the paid employees, who were already busy, seemed even busier than before. Once I achieve the reform of this branch, its sales will increase even more. This will benefit all the employees, and I'll climb higher too. Mark was overheard saying this excitedly to the younger employees. In reality, since his arrival, the young employees' sales performance had improved slightly. Maybe it was the result of Mark's Spartan-style leadership. As for me, watching Mark and the young employees, I thought to myself, being young is incredible. It felt as if it didn't concern me. So, I never imagined that this reform would turn against me one day. Mark called me to his office. I was surprised as he hadn't spoken to me since his first day. "Do you need something?" "Yeah, I'll keep it short since I'm busy," he said, thrusting a piece of paper at me. With the authority of a branch manager, he stated, "I'm terminating your employment effective today. Thank you for your hard work until now." "Yes," I responded, tilting my head reflexively in confusion. Mark's loud voice meant that other nearby employees could hear my sudden termination notice. The surroundings began to buzz with whispers. I thought I had misheard, but the document clearly stated it was a termination notice. "You'll be compensated for your services accordingly. We'll handle the difficult procedures, so please pack your belongings and leave." Mark spoke rapidly, then turned away to return to his work. I was utterly confused, so I confronted him. "Wait a minute. I don't understand why I'm being fired. Have I done something detrimental to this branch?" Despite my stern questioning, Mark didn't look at me and said, "We'll properly offer you a retirement package." That's not what I'm talking about. I'm asking if I violated any employment rules or made any major mistakes. This is wrongful termination. Mark sighed wearily and finally turned to face me. "You're violating your duty of dedication to your job. Bank officers and employees must be aware of their public mission, conduct their duties with integrity, and strive for smooth processing. That's in the regulations." "How am I violating that? Please be specific." This is tiresome. You're not keeping up with the new equipment and systems, still using the old ones, causing delays in work. Don't you see?" Mark ranted impatiently. Have I ever delayed any work deadlines? I don't think I've caused any delays in work. It's wasteful how young employees have to teach you to use the new equipment or wait for your verification on everything. It's hindering smooth operations. "That's an outrageous accusation," I said, anger seeping into my voice. Mark clicked his tongue and stepped closer, intimidatingly looking down at me. "You're in the way." "You are," Mark said, almost spitting the words out. While other employees were bustling around, he continued, You're just lounging at your desk doing menial work that anyone could do. Sitting back after finishing such trivial tasks, it's irritating to watch. Mark, not even trying to hide his malice anymore, was unreservedly harsh in his words despite speaking to someone older than himself. I'm neither lounging nor sitting back arrogantly. So basically, you want to fire me not because I'm a detriment to the branch, but simply because you're annoyed with me. I found myself responding calmly even in the face of Mark's irrational logic. Think whatever you want. Layoffs for staff restructuring aren't uncommon. If you're gone, we can hire more competent younger employees at the right time. Mark responded with a snort. Excuse me, but I think a dismissal without a rational reason counts as an abuse of managerial power. Besides, the back office work, which was Robert's responsibility, was a task assigned by the previous branch manager and was supposed to continue this fiscal year. Susan, who had been anxiously observing our argument, interjected timidly. Following her, other employees started murmuring in agreement, whispering, "That's right. It's an abuse of power." Then from this very moment, back office work is abolished. Mark shouted out loud, not caring who was watching. Thankfully, it was after business hours, and no customers were around. I'm the branch manager now. The previous one might have tolerated it, but I don't need incompetence in my branch. If anyone else objects, you're fired too. There are plenty of replacements. The other employees quickly averted their eyes, but only Susan kept looking at Mark, albeit shrinking in fear. If this goes on, Susan will be his next target. Realizing this, I took a deep breath and, with a calm smile, said, "Understood. If the task is being abolished, I accept the dismissal." Everyone, including the surrounding employees and Mark, was momentarily stunned by my sudden acceptance of the order. However, I added, "Let me give you one piece of advice. Everything you've said in our entire conversation has been heard by other employees. Everything. So, please make sure you have no regrets." "Ah, regrets. What are you talking about?" "It's good that you understand. I'm really relieved that you're taking it so well." That was the end of our conversation. I packed my things that day and completed the minimal handover. It was extremely disappointing to leave the bank I had worked at for over 20 years in such a manner. But as I was leaving, the employees I had worked with for years expressed their sadness at my departure. Some even shed tears. Despite their pleas for me to reconsider, I replied, "I appreciate your sentiments," and went home. A week passed with no job to go to and no need to wake up early. My sleep schedule was irregular. One day, I woke up around 10:00 a.m. Picking up my phone, I noticed dozens of missed call notifications, all from the bank I had been dismissed from a week ago. What's this about? I wondered. But before I could ponder further, the phone rang again. Reluctantly, I answered. Immediately, a familiar shouting voice came through. "What in the world is going on?" "So loud. Is that you, manager? What's this all about?" "What do you mean, what? What have you done? Tell me the truth." "I have no idea what you're talking about. Start from the beginning." As I asked for an explanation, Mark began telling me what had happened over the past week. A few days after I left, major clients started canceling their accounts. The internal back office operations were on the brink of collapse, barely functioning. Throughout his explanation, Mark sounded panicked. But honestly, I couldn't care less. "That's why I warned you," I muttered, astounded. Back when I was a newbie at the bank's counter, lacking confidence in my abilities, I spared no effort to improve my communication and interpersonal skills. As a result, I could handle even the most difficult customers or explain complex issues without trouble. The customers I occasionally served in my 50s were all longtime clients who relied on me. They trusted me more than any other employee for my clear and concise explanations. Among them were many of Mark's so-called major clients. Wealthy people are cautious with their money. They don't entrust their assets to a bank with untrustworthy people. That's why I always prioritize trust with clients. In just 1 week, Mark managed to ruin the trust I built over 20 years. I was beyond anger or sadness. I was just dumbfounded. I don't know why all the major clients left at once, but what do you mean by back office work on the brink of collapse? Isn't it easy and leisurely work that anyone can do? I retorted with a rare touch of sarcasm, mirroring the words Mark had previously used on me. I knew all too well that back office work wasn't as easy as it was made out to be. I was determined to let him know. As I approached retirement, turning 50, I had moved away from front desk operations to handle nearly all the processing tasks that other employees couldn't manage. Each task, though simple on its own, amounted to a tremendous volume of work, taking as much time and effort as front desk duties. Spending all day with numbers and documents is more tiring than one might think, and many give up after a few days. Living alone with no particular hobbies, finding joy solely in work, and constantly learning new things, perhaps I was an exception. Regardless, I've always believed there's no such thing as an idle task in a bank. How pretentious! You must have bad-mouthed our branch to your clients out of spite. Absolutely not. As a professional, I would never say anything that could damage the branch's reputation for personal reasons. I merely sent thank you letters to the clients who had relied on me for years. I had been in the process of handing over my clients to lower employees like Susan. When clients visited the bank, I would sometimes appear to assure them, "Please trust them with your business after my retirement." When Mark ordered my dismissal, I wrote personalized farewell letters to each client, explaining the reason for my departure. I was dismissed for a rational reason, wasn't I? For neglecting my duty of dedication to work? I simply informed the clients of this and apologized. What? So that's why the clients are all saying they need to reconsider their association with us? You should have interfered. The content of my apology for my own negligence doesn't violate any duty of confidentiality or reputation maintenance. Informing them of my retirement and my successors seems only natural. It may sound inappropriate, but I was really pleased that many clients were angered by the unfair treatment I had received. Perhaps they thought someone like me could never violate my duty of dedication to work. It felt like validation for my earnest efforts. Just come back immediately. You have to take responsibility for this mess. What are you talking about? You dismissed me a week ago. I'm no longer an employee there. Instead of wasting time on this pointless conversation, why don't you get back to your work? That dismissal notice was fake. You're still an employee here. Consider the past week as paid leave and return to work immediately. Mark, in his arrogance, was now confessing to document forgery. I was almost speechless at his shameless and hysterical behavior. You've been quite loud. Isn't it business hours? Aren't you alarming the customers? As a bank employee, shouldn't you refrain from such behavior? I tried to remain as calm as possible. After a moment of silence, Mark's voice softened. Please, just come to the bank. I'm begging you. Later, I visited the bank as requested. In the manager's office, Mark was joined by senior bank executives. Mark looked haggard, a shadow of his former self. He was likely reprimanded by the higher-ups. First, I received apologies from all the senior executives present. Unanimously, they said, "We want you to come back." I appreciate your trust, but I can't work under a manager who casually engages in wrongful dismissal and document forgery. Understood. So, if the branch manager changes, would that resolve the issue? Just as I was about to agree, Mark rushed over to me and deeply apologized. Robert, please. I didn't realize you handled so many major clients. I apologize for my rude behavior. Please don't let me be fired. Despite his change in attitude, Mark's volume and intensity remained high. Manager, please, a bit quieter. Your voice can be heard from the client area. As the office door opened, Susan entered, accompanied by one of my longtime major clients, Wilson from Wilson Real Estate. Robert San always speaks highly of you. I apologize for the disturbance. He greeted me with a polite nod. He was my longest-serving client and also the father of the bank employee, Susan. I've heard about the situation from Susan. I'm sorry for what you've been through. This prompted me to rethink where I keep my assets. I'm here to handle some procedures with Susan. It seemed Wilson was here to close his accounts. It was regrettable to lose such a long-standing client, but it was understandable. However, I overheard that if the manager changes, you might return. If that's true, I'd be confident in entrusting my assets to you again. Whether Wilson's words influenced the decision isn't clear, but ultimately, Mark was promptly dismissed. He was confronted with a genuine dismissal notice, not a forged one. As far as I was concerned, his future was none of my business. With his banking experience, I thought he wouldn't struggle to find another job. But it turned out not to be so easy. Wilson, a prominent client, had accounts at various banks around the area. Under the guise of casual conversation, he spread the word about Mark's actions. Mark became blacklisted in the banking community, being rejected for employment everywhere he went. A client isn't bound by charity, Susan casually remarked, echoing her father's words, which I found a bit intimidating. I heard through the grapevine that Mark is now getting by with part-time jobs. I sent greeting cards to my clients, explaining my return to the bank. Even those who had closed their accounts upon my dismissal quickly reopened them when they heard of my comeback. This experience taught me the importance of transitioning responsibilities to others. I'm now actively mentoring the younger employees. They are all eager to learn and take responsibility. It's incredibly fulfilling to still be needed and able to contribute at over 50. With a new goal of nurturing the next generation of bankers, I'm experiencing exciting days, youthful enthusiasm notwithstanding.